Welcome back to the On Air with Jamie's podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Superconscious Shift Sessions. These are one-on-one intensive subconscious reprogramming and trauma release sessions with yours truly. When I say that today's episode was fucking next level, know that I mean it. We went in this conversation with the amazing Jaz Borri, who is a mentor, a speaker, an entrepreneur, all of the things, founder of the esoteric entrepreneur community. Jaz delivered in this episode on like depths and levels of things that I did not even expect. And I say that so many times throughout the episode, but it was honestly such a real and raw and very vulnerable conversation. For a little bit of background, Jaz has recently returned to her business on social media after coming off a 2-month sabbatical. And we talk so in depth about that experience, what led up to it, and all of the lessons that she has learned along the way. Jaz, welcome officially to the On Air with Jamie podcast. I'm honestly so excited to have you. If I'm really honest, you don't know this yet, but you've been on my list to invite onto this show for the longest time. And I'm always like, oh, should I reach out? Should I know? What do I want to talk to her about? Like, I like to be really intentional with these. And I saw a post of yours, like, I don't even know if it was last week or the week before. And I was like, boom, this is it. This is what she needs to come on my show to talk about. So welcome officially. Thank you so much for making time. And I'm honestly so excited to have you here.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. And I love hearing that I get to be that for other people because as a podcast host myself, I have my own list as well. And I'm very, very similar. I think that it's always a positive thing when we're really intentional about the work that we do. And so I just love that you waited for the perfect time. And here we are.
What I really wanted to talk to you about was, of course, the not even elephant in the room because you've been so open about it, which I love, but the recent sabbatical that you have been on. Now, I've been stalking your social media because I was like, I want to really see how this played out. And something I noticed in you, by the way, I'm not a crazy stalker. I have to say this all the time. If you're into human design, I'm a projector. So I'm like the seer. I see all of the things without being like weird fucking stalker, but it always feels weird saying it to people, being like, oh, and I noticed that you did this, and I like remember all these things. And I'm sure people are like, who are you and why? But anyway, I've noticed in you over the last maybe 6 to 12 months, like really starting to change the way that you did things, change the way that you said things. You stopped talking about money online. You really started, I don't want to say filtering yourself because I know that you were still really speaking very open in your esoteric entrepreneur club, but really using that as your platform to be super open and kind of changing the way that you showed up on Instagram. And so I'd love to know more about that and the journey that you've been on that led up to August the 8th, which was the day that you decided, well, maybe obviously not the day, but the day that you announced that you were done and you were taking a little break from social media.
Hmm. Yeah, you're totally right. And I love that you picked up on this. I'm a Scorpio rising, so my language is astrology. And I do know a little bit about human design too, but I'm exactly the same. I can tell when someone's like going through a divorce. I can tell when somebody's like going through something. And I can totally pick up on those things. So I don't think you're a stalker. I'm like, I love it. I'm like you and me together. So yeah, you'd be completely right that around a year ago, there was a shift outwardly, but that would be a personification and a manifestation of a shift that happened, I want to say, around February 2022. I realized that I wanted to, I guess, essentially niche down if we're thinking about it from like a business perspective. But how it felt is that I felt a call to serve someone more specific, and that specific person being someone who is in business. And I think when I started doing that, I looked to people who were in the industry and what they were doing. And I have a 3 line in my human design, which means I have to experiment. I know that about myself anyway. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I have to kind of do, see, and be in the energy in order for me to understand if it works for me or it doesn't. And so I did that. I started to share my income. what was really interesting is I actually I lost a friend during that process and a business partner during that process because it was really triggering. And there's my 5 line coming in saying people will put you on a pedestal. um, and so I really found out a lot about what worked for me, and I found out even more about my own energy. And so I did decide that I wanted to stop sharing certain things. I've never been super public about my relationship. Uh, I made some really core decisions that, okay, I wasn't going to feel any kind of way about that. I was going to embrace that because that's what felt right for me. And that's just one example, like you said, with the money. I didn't really want people hiring me because of how much money I was making. And whilst it's great to celebrate, and I think that there is this need for us to be sharing what we're earning because that's really important, I think, especially for women. And I'm like a raging feminist. So I want to make sure that women know how much they're worth and what's possible. And I think there's something very expansive about that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much money I'm earning in my business because my goal isn't to share with you what I do so that you can do it and then you can make money. Like
Mm,
it just didn't make sense because what I truly believe about business and entrepreneurship is that your path to success is incredibly unique. So not only is your definition of success unique, I think we could all say that, right? Like put it on a shirt,
absolutely.
like everyone knows that.
Mm,
But what we don't understand or what we forget is that therefore the path to that success is also going to be unique. And so I got really obsessed with, okay, well, what's my unique path to success and how can I help others uncover that? I knew how to uncover it because I had the tools with the astrology piece, but it was through that journey that I came up against a lot of really deep truths. And also from an astrology perspective too, uh, I around 6 months ago started my Saturn return. So it makes a lot of sense that there were some really big shifts and changes that everyone was seeing sort of not so much externally, but I kind of bleed out. I'm someone who wears my heart on my sleeve. My astrology shows me that too. I have my sun and my moon together. So it's like who I am on the inside, who I am with myself, and who I present as is the same. Like,
same.
like my boyfriend knows, or my boyfriend, my fiance now, he knows just as much about me as what I know about myself.
Hmm.
And I don't really have any separation between the people in my life and like I don't have private life. Like I don't do that.
Yeah.
Um so when it comes to my online audience, of course that stuff is going to bleed out no matter how much I um no matter how much I filter, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it was really important for me to make some changes and make some switches, and it was all kind of clunky. Like I'm not going to lie, like I look back and it's pretty clunky, but I just come back to that remembrance that you know I'm here to kind of go first. I'm here to experience life. It's how I learn. And that's a big part of my gifts and my talent and the way that I impact the world. And I think for a while, I really struggled with how do I do that? How do I do that in a sustainable way? Is that
Mm,
really right? Is that right for my business? Like, is that okay? Sure, that's right for me, but is that a good business move? I'm still thinking strategically and tangibly and practically. And yeah, I feel like through my sabbatical, I got some pretty clear answers on that.
yeah, I love that. Tell me about what led you to actually choosing to go on said sabbatical because honestly,
Yeah.
I think it's fucking ballsy. Like to you literally shut your business down. I know so many people and myself included who go through these mega periods of transition and while like myself, I would say I've learned to give myself the space and the disconnection from social media and how much I share and what I actually do. I've never fully just disconnected and disappeared intentionally for any like great length of time. I'm always kind of touching in here and there and being like, I guess just like sharing little Easter eggs of what I'm going through. And I've noticed this, like, I don't want to say sabbatical is trending because I fucking hate that, but I'm noticing like a lot of people, a lot of women in business are feeling called to take this time away. So I'd love to talk about like what led up to the actual decision, and then obviously the post that you created on October 8th. Very specific because I went and looked it up before. I was like, I want to know exactly when she did this and like if I can see any themes or trends leading up to that. And truthfully, on your social media, I couldn't. It was kind of, for me, it looked like it came out of nowhere. But for you, obviously, there was a lot that went into that decision.
Yeah, it was an incredibly intentional decision. And on Instagram, I shared, like I'm going through some stuff, and I kind of shared like you could just sense it. Like I said, it was kind of clunky. Like things were kind of a bit clunky because I was just like in an experience
Yeah.
basically, and I was sharing that as I went. But there were a couple of things that contributed to it. Uh, three mainly. So the first one is my business was failing. Well, I'm not going to lie to you. My business was failing. Um, it had been on a downward turn for about a year, and I had some really great months and then some really, really low months. And the consistency that I had built for the 2 to 3 years before that just wasn't there. It just had totally crumbled. And I became acutely aware that that was because what I was doing wasn't completely grounded wholly and completely in authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
It was a step. I was kind of stepping away from my true gifts and talents, and I was doing I felt like I had to do things that would be right in order for me to move forward. And again, I'm all about strategy. Like I'm so about it. But at the end of the day, it was just a little bit amiss. It kind of felt like the scales were just like slightly out of balance. And so you don't really notice it. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, everything's kind of, it was this weird sort of fuckery where things just, no matter how hard I tried, and this is something I said to my fiance, I was like, I don't get it. Like, I'm incredible at sales. I literally used to work for Mercedes Benz. Like, I was the top salesperson there. Like, I know what I'm fucking doing. Like, I made money like way easier when I had like 300 followers. Like, I don't understand. Like, my audience was so small. I had like 30 people on my email list. Like, I don't get this. And it just it took me a while because I was like, okay, well, let me try this. Okay, well, let me try that. And then what I realized through all of that strategy not working is like, well, okay, well, what do I have left? The strategy's not wrong. Like, I know it's not wrong because I've used it before and it works.
Yeah.
I realized it was that piece of like, I think maybe this is just not what I meant to do. And I do think as well, I did feel kind of restricted. And what I mean by that is I was really selling this idea of strategy really
Mm-hmm.
really really like pretty hardcore,
Yeah.
um, and finding your own strategy and all of those sorts of things, but it was strategy based. It was like, let's
Yeah.
figure out how you sell as a Gemini, or how you sell or how you market as a this. And yeah, it felt restricting. So I felt that
Mm.
restrictive energy, and that was the first piece. And I knew that I needed to make a change if I wanted to continue on in business, and start working and keep working for myself. So there was that piece. Secondly, my mental health was in the absolute fucking shitter. Like it was fucked. Like I have no other way of being able to say this, but it was just horrific. I was experiencing depression for the first time in my life. Um, my anxiety had kind of come back pretty full force. But even then, it wasn't really the anxiety. It was really depression, which felt really weird. I kind of had this low-lying depression where I just couldn't really experience like high levels of joy. I could experience deep levels of sadness, but I just couldn't. And it's not like I was sad all the time, but it was like I just couldn't get to the joy no matter what happened. And it kind of hit me. I went to the Harry Styles concert, and I'm in the area. If you went to the Harry Styles concert, you'll know it's called the Kitchen. And it's like the middle of the stage. Like his stage is a square, and
Yeah.
it's like in the middle of the stage. So it's the best spot in the whole thing. So
Like you're in the
basically,
thick of it. You can smell the sweat.
I am basically in the same position that Harry Styles is in. So I am witnessing a stadium of what, 80,000 people?
Yeah.
I don't even know how many people fit in there. Thousands, tens of thousands of people. And I'm like literally feet away from Harry fucking Styles, who is putting on this incredible fucking concert.
Performance, like holy
Yeah.
moly.
And then I'm also there with my assistant, who used to be a client of mine and then turned into into one of my assistants, and we'd never met in person before. And she had the spare ticket, and she's like, and she's from Melbourne and I'm from Sydney. So I was like, like we finally meet. So I'm having this like incredible moment. And, my business it's not, completely in the shitter at this point. Like it was, good, and I'm serving clients and I'm making a change, and yet nothing. And that was like a bit of a wake up call for me when it came to this like mental health piece, because that was in March.
Yeah.
So that's when I started to work with it, and I guess sort of like acknowledge it. And then when you acknowledge something, you're like, oh fuck, and then shit happens. And then last but not least, I'm a workaholic. Like I don't want to say diagnosed, because I don't think you can really diagnose that, but like I am a workaholic.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like, oh, I'm such a workaholic. Like I mean, when I'm going through something difficult, I use work to mask pain. I use mask to cope. I use work to cope. I have a really dangerous and toxic relationship with work, and I from that, because I was really struggling mentally, I used work even more. And so what happens when you have an addiction to work is it's when your obsession with your work, which is not necessarily bad. Every entrepreneur is obsessed with what they do. That's kind of normal, and you kind of need that.
Yeah.
But when that obsession turns into a compulsion, that's when you have an addiction. And it's actually specifically defined as a compulsion to working long hours and really hard.
Yeah.
Working hard and long hours.
And long. Yes.
So for me, because of my addiction, my worth is wrapped up in my ability to earn and provide and give and work and succeed and accomplish. And so when I had an income dip, I literally went into a full blown like panic attack, like mental breakdown, because I didn't know. It's like, imagine telling an alcoholic like one, like don't drink. If you have to drink to survive, that'd be kind of like weird, right? Like we all have to work, but imagine if there was no alcohol left like in the world, and like you can't get like you can't have a drink, like there's no alcohol. So it's like the alcohol just like stopped working for me. It got to that point where it was just really, really intense. And so then I realized, because my mental health was pretty bad, I had a couple of months of that, and then I just got to the point where I was making dinner one night for my fiance and I, and he came home, and I kind of like G'd myself up, because I was like, I think I need to stop. for a bit. Like I'm kind of afraid of what will happen if I keep going. I just knew I was kind of a bit of a fork in the road, and something needed to change.
Yeah.
And when I asked myself, what would I do if like money was no object and whatever, I would go to like Bali for 3 months and like eat, pray, love, and then like just peace out and come back.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I mean, 3 years ago, I probably, not even 18 months ago, I probably would have done that. I just would have been like, yeah. And I
Gotcha.
just would have like gone
Yeah.
or whatever. But we had just got engaged. We're doing a really quick turnaround for our wedding. We're doing a 9-month turnaround. We're not doing a small wedding. It's a full weekend. Like,
Yeah.
this is insane. The fact that I think that I want to stop working, 1. 2, ask my partner to basically become the sole earner for the first time in our, not the sole owner, but the sole earner and the predominant earner for the first time in our whole relationship, when I'm asking him to pay the $6,000 invoice for our wedding. It just felt, it felt like there was so much shame. There was so much guilt. There was so much.
That's a lot.
I've never been with anybody who earns less than me. That's something, even when I was like cleaning ashtrays for a living when I was like 19, like I still was with someone who like minus. Like I've always had this like subconscious thing around money in that way, and around work and like all this shit, right? And so for me to even admit this to myself, that this is what I needed, let alone ask anybody, even though, not surprisingly, my fiance, the first thing he said to me was,
Fucking
"Absolutely."
course. Yes.
Yeah, like he actually loved the idea,
Yeah.
and he really pushed for it. And I came back with him and I just like let all those fears out. I was like, okay, but what about this? But what about that? And he is a scientist and is very analytical, and was like, no, like we can actually make this work. Like it's not forever. Like I think you should do this. And I think the beauty of it is that he actually took some time off because of a similar situation he was in personally, that I was able to support us through. And so it felt like this beautiful sort of exchange as well. And he
It's
said, he's
almost
like,
like a
you did it.
karmic cycle,
Yeah.
right?
He was like, you did it for me. Like,
Yeah.
I'll do it for you. Like, it's fine. This is what it is. And he actually wanted me to take 3 months off. And I was like, no. I was like, I can't do that. I was like, 3 weeks is going to be hard enough for me. Like, I think 2 months is enough.
Yeah.
And, even then, like the reason why I say the workaholism really kicked in then, because the first thought that I had when he was like, okay, like we're going to do this, he went to the bathroom like halfway through the conversation. And when he went to the bathroom, I was like, okay, but maybe I could like still do this, or I could still do that, or I could like maybe just post here or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And I told him, I was like, as soon as you walked away, my brain was already thinking about ways I could get around this. Like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, this is an addiction. This is not,
Yeah.
this is not,
Yes.
normal behavior.
Yeah.
Right. And so he was like, okay, well, no. And we kind of came with a plan. I decided I would pre-record podcast episodes and then have them going out. So that way, if I ever felt the urge to work, I could just see that and be like, oh, no. But like,
It's
I kind
happening.
of am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was very strategic about this. And I'm so grateful that I had this awareness around my workaholism, because I think that without it, the awareness allowed me to put in things that actually enabled me to fully step back safely. So I did that. And then the other piece that came up too was like, the next day, as I started to tell my team, I let go of my whole team. As I started to tell my team and tell mentors that I was working with that I needed to put our mentorship on pause, all those sorts of things, I was like literally getting like visceral, physical, anxious reactions from this. Like my body was in like fight or flight.
Yeah.
And one of the major thoughts that came through was that I was worried that he wouldn't want to marry me. Like, why would he want to marry me if I'm not earning? And when I told him that, he was like, I'm offended. Like, I'm not offended, but I'm offended. And I was like, why? And he was like, what makes you think I want to marry you because of that? Like, you shouldn't marry me if I wanted to marry you for basically for your money, for what you can provide us. Like, that's insane. And I was like, oh yeah. So it's been like, I'm so grateful for him. And I know that this, like, I know not everybody has that, even in their own relationships, but I wonder if you have a friend who is that for you, or you have a parent who is that for you, or a sibling, or a, you know, whatever, a mentor even. Like, if you don't have those people in your life, fucking hire one. Like, without that safe space to be really vulnerable about these like fucked up thoughts that I know are fucked up, but I'm having them and I need you to just like, I'm going to say them to you and I need you to tell me that they're fucked up and wrong. Is just really, really, really powerful. And I tell my clients to do this all the time. If they're worried about what their parent will think if they do this or that or whatever, I'm like, ask them. Because usually if you tell them, I'm scared that you won't love me if I start my business, or I don't know, move to Spain, they're going to be like, oh, like, I don't want that to happen. And then that fear is gone. So that's just a little teaching from that moment. And then there's actually a fourth piece. The last piece was, okay, I decided to do this, but I hadn't really told anyone. I was very slowly but surely telling mentors, figuring out when I was going to come back, what the go was going to be. I could have backed out. Like, there was still, I had left holes for myself to back out.
Yeah.
And like, I was procrastinating with recording the episodes of the podcast and all this sort of shit. Like, I'd left enough room for me to fully back out of it. And then a family friend of mine passed away. Someone who I wasn't incredibly close with, but someone who's the same age as my dad. And he has children who are the same age as me and my brother. And yeah, just watching my family grieve and watching people and feeling my own sense of grief as well, it just put everything into perspective. I don't want to say that there's perfect timing for death, but I think that there was some divine timing in this in a way for me and my own experience
it was like
of
the
life.
the final confirmation piece for you.
Final confirmation piece of going, okay, how the hell will I ever be the kind of mother that I want to be, the kind of daughter I want to be, the kind of wife I want to be, the kind of sister I want to be, the kind of founder I want to be, the kind of business owner, the kind of coach, the kind of mentor, if I'm feeling this way and working this way.
Yeah.
Like, and my situation is unfortunately so dire that I actually have to fully, wholly and completely exit from the space in order to do anything about it. I think that like, if I'm completely honest, I actually think that most people probably don't need a 2-month sabbatical. I would say that my situation was quite severe. But I'm so glad that you asked me this, because I think that I don't, like, I wonder how more severe it could be.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be here anymore. My business is going bankrupt and I've lost sight of everything that's important. So, like, I don't know how worse it could get. So I want you to not compare yourself as you listen to this story, but I do want you to find yourself in it and see that if this is quite a severe case, where do you lie and what would you need? I think that's I think the beauty of sharing this is it's not that a sabbatical is the answer, but there might be a similar answer for you. And yeah, I went to the funeral, which was in another state, went and did that, spent a couple of days with my family, and yeah, came back and was like, I can't wait to switch off. I'm done. Like, this has to happen. Prepared myself, and then did what I needed to do.
I'm interrupting this episode really quickly to talk to you about my brand new one-on-one offer, Superconscious Shift Sessions. These are one-on-one intensive subconscious reprogramming and trauma release sessions. Honestly, I see things so overcomplicated in this online industry, and I really wanted to create something that was so stripped back and so specific and fucking simple for you to move through the blocks and the things that are keeping you stuck. If you are feeling resistance, if you know all of the things that you need to be doing but you're not doing it, something is in the way. And it's most likely not because you're out of alignment, it's because there is a part of you that doesn't want you to take the action that you know you need to take. We can literally reprogram this and release what is stopping you from your body in a simple 60-minute session with me. If this interests you, please reach out via DM on Instagram to talk about packages, or click the link in the show notes below to book your one-on-one session right now. Spaces are limited, of course, because this is one-on-one work directly with me held over Zoom, but I promise you the transformation that you will experience from these sessions is like no other. This work is so important to me, and it's really important for me to get this work out there, to invite you into my world and to give you a taste of what it's like to experience life without limitations. Yeah, wow. Firstly, I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much for being so fucking open and vulnerable. I'm sure that some of what you've shared was really not easy to share, but there are so many beautiful lessons in that. And I think there are so many of us who have, like, I just want to say, firstly, I actually wasn't expecting the conversation to even go here at all. But I think there's so many beautiful lessons in this because there are so many women who have tied their worth to their business. And we talk about this all the time in the online space, but I don't think anyone actually fully understands how dangerous that is. And you're the walking evidence of how dangerous that is. And it's fun to play in the world of the freaking reel or TikTok that goes around that's like, I quit my 9 to 5 to be an entrepreneur and work 24/7, and people laugh about it and joke about it.
It's not a joke.
But it's actually not fucking funny, right?
No, it's not fucking funny. I love that you're speaking into this for women, specifically as well, because look, I think it's a founder problem. I recently listened to Diary of a CEO with the founder of Airbnb, Brian Chesky,
Yep.
and he really speaks to this concept of like isolation that a lot of founders find themselves in. And he mentioned that, and I talked about this in a recent IG live that I did, the Simplicity Files. Like, I did a series where I kind of opened up about all the things that I've been learning and taught some stuff about sustainable success. But he said, if he could forewarn anybody about, like, if you're about to build anything, even a tenth of the size of Airbnb, that there's a psychological journey that happens when you're building a business, and when you're sustaining that business and scaling that business, and that psychological journey only happens to the founder. Because I mean, there's so many, I won't butcher it, you guys can go listen to it, but my point here is that yes, it's a founder problem, but I also think that there is a special kind of hellish experience that being a female founder entails, and there's a navigation that we have to embark on that our male counterparts don't.
Yeah. There's so much more conditioning and shit that we have to come up against and overcome, right?
Because we're the ones who are fighting for value in society, not them.
Yeah.
Not only, I also heard a stat the other day that 2.8% of venture capital that is invested is only 2.8% of that is to female founders. So we've got 97% or whatever of the capital that angel investors and venture capitalists are investing into companies. And these are like big, like this is not like a service-based business. This is the products
Yeah.
and the services that make the world go round. That's what
Yeah.
entrepreneurs do. We create the products and services that make the world go round. We create solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Without us, there are no solutions.
Yeah.
Your life is very fucking hard.
Yeah.
So understanding that 97% of that money is being invested into men. I'm not saying don't invest in men. I'm saying, can we even the scales like just a bit, like just a touch, you know? So not only is that, so we're not even in that, like, I'm not even in that realm.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then also there's the societal conditioning as well. Like I said before, of like, we're the only ones, especially as 21st century women. Now, not only do we have to, be mothers, we have to work too, because not because we want to, even if we don't want to, we have to.
Mm.
Like, I know some of us want to, and that's great. Like,
Yes.
fucking,
Yeah.
and if you don't want to, great. Love
Yeah.
that for you. But if
Yeah.
you don't want to, now we don't even have
You don't have a choice.
we don't have
Yeah.
a choice. Who can live on a single income household? Fucking no one.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. If you can, like, your husband's a fucking surgeon. Like, it's not,
Hold on to him.
like, or your partner's a surgeon of some kind. Like, you need to have two incomes really in order to have anything of, material abundance.
Mm.
And not even, like, sometimes just shelter, food,
No, just to
water,
actually like get by. And this is
So
such an important conversation. I talk about this a lot actually. And it's something that I've really come to experience myself. Like, it's almost like, and I don't want to say feminism has gone so far fighting for equal rights, or if it's just like the capitalism of the world, or just the general way that the world is now. But there was once a time where women fought to be equal and in the workforce, right? And it was amazing when that was finally recognized. But now it's gone so far that, okay, great, we get to work now, but we also still are the primary like managers of the home and the primary caregivers for the children and fucking organizers for everything. And it's like, yeah, women fought for equal rights in the workplace, and obviously there's still work to be done there. But with that, we also still held everything else that we used to do back in the 50s, right? And I was like, you know what? I'd almost give anything sometimes to go back and just be a fucking 1950s housewife and just wear a pretty dress and cook and clean all day. Don't worry, darling. That would be me. Like, sign me up for that shit. And it honestly blows. It blows my brain. It's just wild.
Yeah, I think we have to look at what we have to look at the word equality with a little bit of nuance.
Yeah.
Equality is not I can do this and you can do this. Like, yes, that is a part of it. But it's more nuanced than that, because at the end of the day, I'm the only person in this heterosexual relationship who can birth a child.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, we're different, but we're not different in the sense that, like, I can't do what you can do, in the sense that you can't do what I can do.
Yeah.
And so I think, look, to kind of bring this back to work and workaholism, and I think, like you said, this trend that we're kind of seeing of women really wanting to step back. And ever since I've come back, that has been obviously I've been talking about this concept, but I've had a lot of people message me saying, like, I can't wait to hear the story because I feel like I might need the same thing, but I'm scared, I'm worried that I won't be of value, I'm worried. They're not worried about the money. No one has said to me, no one has messaged me and said, I can't do that because I can't afford it. Yeah. And I'm sure that that's still true. 100% that's true, right? Like, I'm so lucky that I'm even in a relationship that somebody, like, I have someone to support me and whatever, right? Like, I totally get that. But no one's saying that to me.
I love that it's not the first thing that people are considering, right? It's not like, oh, can I afford to do this before I think about anything else? It's like, think about all the things and then figure out how I can afford it.
How you can make it work. What do you need? I mean, I gave shit up. Don't you worry. Like, I gave some things up, So I think that it's interesting. And then what I even found when I thought about my own experience of that, making this decision to step away, I thought about, like, I did think, okay, well, this is a crazy thing financially. But it wasn't because, like, it's because it didn't make sense, but it was because, like, how could I be planning a wedding and doing this and doing that and not be contributing?
Mm.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like, because we can figure it out, find money, like we'll ask people for money. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Can always go make more money. If I needed to, I'll go pour coffees down at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
It's, you know what I mean? Like you can make money. You
Yeah.
can make money. If you're able-bodied and you know, whatever. But I mean, I kind of wasn't. I was really fucking depressed. But it's like,
Yeah.
you know, there's options available to you. But I'm going to just put that nuance aside, and I'm going to allow everyone to just assume that we're keeping that privilege in the room. And I'm going to speak to what I really want to speak to here, which is we as women have this extra mental load and we are constantly fighting to prove our value.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that a male founder's experience of sustainable success, of cultivating and building sustainable success, which is the crux of why I did what I did as well, is because it was unsustainable. But that that pathway is different and requires, you're kind of like a third of the way there. Whereas I feel like women are going to be a little bit behind, and there's a little bit more work that they're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
do and deconditioning they're going to have to do in order to even process the idea of wanting to take some time away. I mean, like mum guilt is one. You know, women feeling like they need to rush back to work, you know, the fact that they feel sort of purposeless when they're just with their child. And I'm not to say that like if you feel that way it's wrong. I'm not a mother. I don't know anything. Like take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But I wonder if we thought, well, hang on, if my value was seen not in what I could provide to this child, not in what I can earn, but the fact that I'm simply here breathing, what do I actually want to rush back to? Do I want to rush back to work? If that's the case, go for it. If I want to actually know, I do just want to be with my kid, then you can make those aligned decisions. But without having an understanding of your inherent value, that's when that workaholism starts to creep in. And it's a spectrum. Like I said, mine was very severe, but it's a very fine line. And once you're over that line, if you're not aware that you're over it, you can end up in the deep end really fucking quickly.
Yeah.
And that line is the line between obsession and compulsion. It's
Yeah.
very hard to spot, and it's a conversation you have to have with yourself. And so what rooms are you putting yourself in? What connections and relationships do you have? What media are you consuming that allows you to actually activate those conversations with yourself? That's why I do what I do now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to know, like, obviously the time away has given you some incredible time to not just spend with yourself, like really, I guess, like introspectively, like thinking about the stuff, contemplating on it all, uncovering it, and also some time to actually heal and work through the things that you've been through. But from a business perspective, I'd love to know some of the shifts that it's helped you realize now, and maybe a bit of a plan for yourself working forwards on not just implementing the changes, but also like, I feel like people go through these phases of, okay, I've uncovered this thing, right? I know that this is the thing. I know that this is a problem for me. I'm going to go through the healing, but they don't implement then the plan that's going to, I guess, keep them from going back into that old phase, that old state,
Mm-hmm.
that old way of being.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a very
So
loaded question. So take the floor.
So, okay. So, the reason that happens, so if you've just listened to that and you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to hear the answer to this, or I'm fucking wondering why this keeps happening to me, I'm going to tell you exactly why. It's because your awareness isn't enough. Your awareness of the problem isn't enough. Thinking your way through the problem is just not the it's just not the way to do it. And so when you talk about healing, what does that actually mean? Is that you just thinking and journaling about it? Is that you just pondering? Is that you what is that, what is that actually doing? Most of the time it's because that's not actually what you need to solve the problem. And I know that sounds like super simple, but when I heard that, and I actually heard that through one of my most recent podcast guests and a very dear friend, Brianna Morse. She's a microdosing coach, so she works with some deep shit. And she said that she was like, the reason you're frustrated is because you're trying to think your way out of your issue. And unfortunately, that's just not deep enough. So you need to experience healing. And that is a big reason why so many of us fall off the bandwagon. So how do we implement this? So there's a couple of ways, like there's two ways that you can kind of think about this. Yeah, we can think about it from a business perspective, and we can also think about it from a personal perspective. But when we think about it separately, what I find is that problem that you just mentioned is we start to go, okay, but I need to rest, but my business needs to launch.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're at odds.
Yep.
That is unsustainable. So the idea that I want, and this is an idea I've been obsessing over ever since this started to occur, this sort of shift where everything started to crumble. And I was like, okay, wait. How do I create sustainable success? Because one day I'm crying, one day I'm great. And it's just like this. Like, why is it so much? So how do I create sustainable success? And so I've been obsessed with learning and figuring out what that is for about, I don't know, 2 years. And I've been talking about the pieces of that as well. And everything I've said up until this point, if you look back at my work, I still stand by. But what happened during the sabbatical is this realization, I guess, that the way that we stop having ourself and our business at odds, and therefore that is what leads to the breakdown and the falling off the bandwagon and not being able to implement, nothing actually changing, and you go through the same fucking cycle over and over and over again, is by starting to focus on your role as a founder. Because your role as a founder asks you to care about yourself and your business in the same vein. Do you know what I mean? It's all in that same funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we do founder focused work, and it's not to say don't strategize and don't do your just personal spiritual stuff and whatever, but do you have a founder focused practice? Do you have founder focused work? How do you even know what that is? Probably not. So this is how we create sustainable success. Because what's happening and why you're falling off the bandwagon is because it's unsustainable. Because
Yeah.
so you could still have a $10,000 day, and like, but you're fucked up. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what's the
Yeah.
point? So
Yeah.
sustainable success is this idea of how do we be a human, right?
Yeah.
And when I thought about this concept of sustainable success, I actually talked to my fiance. He's a environmental scientist who works in sustainability. So I literally asked him, can you define me and show me what is sustainability? Like, what actually makes something sustainable? And what surprised me about his response was that sustainability is not about being good all the time, being like up here all the time. We strive for that. That's the direction. It's not the goal. Sustainability is how do you minimize negative impacts so that the positive impacts are like 80-20.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically sustainability
Yeah.
is 80-20. And he showed me a bunch of like cool fucking
Science
things
things.
and science things or whatever. But when I heard that, I was like, oh, it's not about not feeling bad. It's about having the systems and the processes, literally, to handle when those negative impacts inevitably occur. So when we think
Yeah.
about success, what are the negative impacts? Poverty, boredom, depression, anxiety, like self-righteousness, like there could be a million.
Yeah.
So it's not that you're never going to experience those things. It's that you want to minimize the impact of those things.
Yeah.
So how do we do that? There's 3 core pillars, non-negotiable pillars of sustainable success. And they are all done. The source of sustainable success, the one and only, is founder-focused work.
Yeah.
Understanding that You have to work as a founder in the founder archetype. So what does that mean? The first one is faith.
Yeah.
Faith, I'm not going to go like super deep into them. I literally did a 3-day free Instagram live
All on her
masterclass on this.
Instagram. We'll link them below.
So go check them out. They're an hour each. Ingest them, go for it. I've also got like an email thread. So if you'd rather read it rather than listen, you can sign up to that. I'll put that in the link in my bio.
Yeah.
And it's free. So, but I will just hit them so you understand the premise. So faith is faith in something bigger than yourself. Because faith in that something bigger, whether that's God, Jesus, I don't know, like Muhammad, the Dalai Lama, or if you're like me who isn't super religious, but I am definitely very, very spiritual and all of those things, I think about it as philosophy.
Yeah.
So what's making you, like, I believe that God has a hand on my back. I just don't subscribe to, creation. I think evolution happened. So it doesn't feel right for me to go to church. So, and I understand a lot of people are in that position. That was one main piece of feedback that I got from that class that I led was, oh my God, I felt so seen in this, that you can read a Bible verse and get something personal from it that helps you philosophize your own faith rather than it having to be about the religion.
Yeah.
So I share a lot about that in that class, but faith in something higher gives you the faith that you have innate gifts and talents and that you have an original assignment and that those innate gifts and talents are here to help you as the tools to execute on that assignment. And then that is then giving you faith in the work that you're putting out, that is going to impact who it needs to impact. And the other really cool thing about faith is it gives everything that you just went through reason. Everything I just went through, all of that depression, all of that anxiety, all of that not that I went bankrupt, but all of that poverty, all of that stress, all of that anxiety, all of that fear, all of that grief, all of that everything, I was being crafted. My tools were being sharpened. The analogy that I give is that period of my life, I was just on the sharpening block. That was just God fucking making me even sharper, because now I can sit here with you and deliver this with so much integrity and like, this is the fucking truth.
Yeah.
This is my truth. You cannot tell me that this isn't real.
It's pure conviction.
I can sit here with conviction and I can know that if you do this, you will experience a shift and change in your life that you've been craving, pleading, hoping, willing into existence. So that's the first one. The second one is value, inherent value. Are you connected to your inherent value? Again, I talk a lot about this, but the one thing that I want to leave you with today is how you know if you are connected to your inherent value, which is the inherent value that you have as you breathe. Like, you walk into a room and whether you speak or not, you're bringing value.
Yeah.
Because you're there. I always say, like, the value that you bring as like a child, like a daughter, like your dad, like, I don't know, my relationship with my dad, I have a really, really close relationship with him. And during the sabbatical, my parents kind of went through some stuff, and I just said, like, I realized that, like, they don't need my money, they don't need my opinion, they don't need my words, they don't need my company, they don't need any of that. They just want me, like, sitting on the couch,
Just there.
They just want me just there.
Yeah.
And I'm not a mother, so I don't know these things, but I could feel like, oh, like, that kind of value, like, you only get that from remembering, like, you're a child.
Yeah.
And you're so loved no matter what relationship you have with your parents. Like, I know not everyone has a great relationship like that, and I'm really lucky, but that inherent value, you'll know if you're connected to that by the state of your nervous system, your mental health, and your relationships.
Yeah.
So take a look. If they're in the shitter, you're disconnected.
Yeah.
It might be one, it might be all of them.
Yeah.
And then the last one is your shadow. How connected are you to the things that keep you disconnected from your inherent value? You know, and this is the unpopular opinion that I gave, which was like, you can't look at your shadow on your own. Your shadow is in your shadow. So you can't see it. You need somebody to, even if you had the torch yourself and you're in the fucking cave, you need to put the torch down to pick up the thing, and then you're like trying to lean it up against something, and just bring someone into the fucking cave.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do it alone. And actually, I think it's quite negligent for people to be doing their own shadow work because you don't know what the fuck you're going to find. So if you're serious about shadow work, you should do it with somebody. It's why you don't do ayahuasca on your own. You do it with a fucking shaman.
Yeah.
Like, this has been played out to us in history from ancient times. So this is where you have to put your pride down and ask for help. You cannot create sustainable success without help. You are the founder. You have the whole weight of your business on your shoulders. That's the truth. So it's not about how do you lighten the load. Fuck that. You've got big dreams. Don't lighten the load. Call in more troops.
Yeah. Which
That's how
inherently
you,
in itself lightens the load, right? Because
exactly,
you're
right?
sharing the load.
And that's the thing where founders, consciously or unconsciously, whether it's from pride or just what can
I think
happen
it's
is
a
we
lot of
put
pride,
ourselves
and
in
I think it's the whole
isolation.
fucking solopreneur thing where it's like, oh, I'm a solopreneur and I built this whole business myself from the ground up to this amount with no team and from my tiny little office. And it's like, great.
Yeah,
But
do you
how
want
the
to
fuck
met
do
up?
you feel and how
How
are
do
you
you
living
feel?
your life?
Exactly.
How
And
are
so,
you living your life?
exactly. And so I think you're like, there is a time and a place to hire 100%. Like, you could only hire as much as your profit margin will allow you. Otherwise, you're
Yes.
not doing
Right.
business well. However, if you're thinking about founder, if you're focusing on the founder, your therapist, and to be quite honest, I actually think you kind of need like 2 or more. Like, if I'm being completely honest, because I've had my hypnotherapist who I've been working with for 3 years, love her, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
It's not that she wasn't enough. It's that the subconscious work wasn't enough for me. That's
Yeah.
my personal energy, how my brain works. You need to figure that out for yourself.
Yes.
But I know I needed, so when I was on my sabbatical, the plan was to have my hypnotherapist to go and get a psychologist to help me on a conscious level. And I wanted to do something somatic because I was ready to kick this shit in the eye. I was done. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. If I want to be a mother, how the fuck am I going to be a mom with this shit going on? No,
Yeah.
it's not
Not
gonna
am I,
happen.
trust me.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I have an awareness. Let's fucking nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually end up getting the psychologist in time because it's just Medicare
So
system.
hard. Yeah.
You know, it's just not how it works.
Yeah.
But I did end up doing EFT tapping.
Yeah.
Basically once a week, once a fortnight, for like a month. So and that, what happened is it allowed the shadow to feel like it was ever flowing. So I still felt incredible. I mean, I had so many feelings of sadness and grief and disappointment in myself that I didn't even see my own inherent value, and the juiciness of life that I didn't get to drink because I was too, even though I was there, I wasn't fully there. And I got to finally see all this shit that I was missing. And there was so much emotion about that. You know, I can't remember exactly what my fiance said to me when he proposed. There's parts of it that I don't remember. And I think to myself, if I had that inherent value, I would have been more present, and I would remember and did it, right? So,
Yeah.
but the thing is that the difference, because I was actually doing real shadow work, not just being triggered by my shadow. We think that shadow work is just you being triggered by your shadow. It's not. Shadow work is something you do in tandem.
Yeah.
So I had this experience of like, okay, now because I had that support, it wasn't sticking to the edges. It didn't mean that it wasn't painful. It was just as painful, but the sensation was different in a way I had never experienced before, or maybe once or twice. I lie. I had a period in my life where I had a psychologist and a hypnotherapist, and it was probably not for that long. It was probably for about 3 months, and I wasn't going through anything as as intense as what I was going through now. But there was that same sense of like it was flowing. It was
Mm-hmm.
going forward
Mm-hmm.
rather than building and feeling like it's fucking seeping out of the fucking holes,
Yeah.
and the cracks. That's overwhelm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's overwhelm. When you have a support team to go through your shadow work with, which is again real shadow work, that is when it is going to flow forward. And within 2 to 3 weeks, I didn't give a fuck about work. It happened. That's how you create speed, is through just the flow. It wasn't sticking to the sides.
That's
It
the
just
time
was
collapse,
flowing.
right? The quantum leap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I jumped on a call and I was like, and yes, it is the modalities and the science behind them and the power of them 100%. But I think from a bird's eye view, it was the fact that I had support. That was the shift. That was the key. That's what
Yeah. I
tipped it
think it's
over.
also how you show up. Like being a practitioner myself of modalities really similar to the ones that you're speaking about. It's also how you show
Mm.
up. Like you're in control. You get to say
Oh,
whether you're going to fucking play full out, because you can still come to these sessions and be like, "Oh yeah, like I'm going to do it and I'm going to feel so good, right?" And then you walk away and you haven't played full out and you haven't allowed yourself to be vulnerable. So I think that that's also a really big testament to you and how you chose to show up for yourself in those moments.
thank you.
And I want to take a moment to also really plug in, like, I speak about this all the time. And I love that the conversation has gone here because I think sometimes it's so much more powerful to hear messages shared from other people. But I always talk about how the conscious work is not enough. Because for me, it's like looking for a fucking needle in a haystack and you're not going to find it or you're not going to get to the root cause
Yes.
in a journal, right? You can journal out all day, all the shit things that you feel, but until you actually find the root of where that's coming from,
Yeah.
which could stem from your childhood, which could stem from a past life, if you believe in that, which could stem from ancestry 7 generations back, you're not going to get through it. It's going to keep coming up and being a cycle that plays out in your life. And I love that you have tackled two completely different modalities that is not just rewiring your brain, because a lot of people just want to work on their brain and they forget about their body. And I actually just recorded, it's so funny. I literally just recorded a whole podcast on this last night. That will be the episode that goes out before this one about the modality that I use, which actually works on both a mind and a body level. So we're releasing both at the same time. And it's so important because you can have a clear mind and your body can still feel the fucking shit because our
Yeah.
body stores stuff, right? And so I love the
100%.
combination of the things that you've chosen to go through, and it's really tackling everything from the different levels. And I truly believe that not enough people do this because they want to do the shadow work that's cool all over Instagram that involves a journal and like pulling some tarot cards, and it's just
Or
bullshit,
doing ayahuasca. And it's
right?
just not the same thing. I know exactly what you're saying. And I mean, this is why coming back now, I'm so connected to my gifts. Like,
Yeah,
I'm my decision coming back is to kind of shut down which was JB House. That was kind of the brand that we
yeah,
worked under, and starting the Esoteric Entrepreneur brand, which has already started. We
yeah,
have the podcast that's under
yeah,
that, and that's our free content. But basically, what the Esoteric Entrepreneur is founder focused support. It's founder focused content, products, services, because again, this is the power of it. It's if you can put your intention into your role as a founder, what you're doing is you are honoring your business and putting your intention on your business equally as you are on yourself.
yeah,
Because that is where the sustainability comes through, because you are the first domino. I say this all the time.
yeah,
You're the first domino.
yeah,
So you need to take care of that. And, I'm really excited now because, we've opened up just 3 entry points now.
yeah.
We have the podcast, so we have free. So the
Yeah.
podcast, and we just started the Instagram. So go follow it. It's new
Love
and
it.
has like 150 followers. So I'm like, everyone go follow it. And that's going to be coming out with just, your free content on
Yeah.
Instagram so that your feed actually has some stuff that's going to bring you back to you as the founder, not just success strategies and look at what I did and look at my life. It's not going to be about me. It's going to be about you.
Yeah.
And then we have the Esoteric Entrepreneur Club, which is like my parasocial mentorship platform. So if you're wanting mentorship and you're wanting to have that person in the room with you, but you kind of want it without the high price tag and all the strings attached, then you can go over to the club, because that's where I bring everything from the experiences I'm going through in the moment to the recurring themes that I'm seeing with my clients. I'll create content on that. We give you a piece of content every single Friday, and it's all audio. So if you're booked and busy, you can do it
Listening
on
on the
your
go.
way.
Yeah.
And there's also, it's like there's an intimacy, right? It feels like I'm literally in your ear, and so that's
In
why
your
we
head.
call it that
Yeah.
parasocial piece. Yeah, without the Zoom calls and the four-figure
Yes.
price tag every month
Yeah.
and the group chats. And now I've just launched today, and so I wonder if there's anyone that this is meant for in this community, in your community. I'm looking for 3 clients to work with on a 6-month container, to do basically, to the naked eye, it would look like business shadow work,
Yeah.
but it's really an intimate container where I hold space for you and use my scorpionic gifts of being able to see through some real bullshit, and then also mentor you with my 15 years of experience and everything I've just spoken about and more, as you really navigate through your own shadow. So that's really for someone who wants intense, like direct, deep work when it
Yeah.
comes to their shadow, and they're really wanting to make big changes in their life, in their business, in the way that they're pursuing success, and want to start really living and achieving the goals in a way that actually makes you feel like you're like, holy fuck, and you're actually enjoying it, not just looking for the next mountain to climb.
I
That's
love
that's
that.
the transition that we're
Yeah.
making. So it feels really exciting to be in this like founder focused space, and it feels like everything that I went through, I was being crafted for this work. So I'm looking for just 3, though when I announced it this morning, I said 5, like it just came out of my mouth. So a part of me thinks that maybe God universe is like, I think that there's 5 people that need this.
Yeah.
So I'm just out here spreading the message, being like,
DM
is
me.
it you? Like
Yeah.
literally, is it you? I'm trying to find you. So
Yeah.
come DM me,
Yeah.
and I can tell everyone you get perks and
Yeah.
what's included, and I can give you the investment from there. But I'm really excited about it. It's going to be really fun, and it feels really aligned. It's fun for me. I mean, I like looking at all the ugly stuff that no one wants to talk about.
I'm here for
As you
it.
can tell.
I'm so here for it, honestly. And I think that this is what's needed in this space. I'm also noticing a trend that I've been talking about behind the scenes with another friend. Not a trend, sorry. It's like a shift in the industry at the moment where people are really, I don't know if it's like niching down within themselves, but it's also like really coming into themselves, really coming into, I've been on all these different paths. I've tried all these different things. This is where I'm meant to be. And I think this next phase of the online space is about being solid as fuck within yourself, what you do, the gifts that you're here to share. And this work is the perfect way to help bring that to life.
Yes, like you're not going to get there and execute without the support, because
Yeah.
your shadow is going to be with you the whole way. So
Yeah.
you need someone to kind of help you keep it at bay, help you alchemize it, help you move with it, help you understand it. So yeah, it's like no matter what problem you're dealing with, whether it's like, I don't even know what's going on, or I'm so depressed right now because of this, that, and the other, like having someone who's kind of not just been through it, but knows how to work with this. Like, I'm not just an astrologer, I'm also a hypnotherapist, and I'm also a breathwork practitioner, and I'm also an empowerment coach, like, and a business coach. And like, I have a lot of like tools in my arsenal. It's because I've been
Yeah.
doing this for a fucking long time.
Yeah.
So I'm just ready to give it all over. And I think that anyone who's listening to this, if they know that it's right for them, they'll come hang out in whichever one that they feel is right for them.
1000%. And I'll make sure everything is linked in the show notes below.
Thank you.
But holy moly, I was not expecting this conversation to go where it did, but I'm honestly so grateful for you, so grateful for your time and just your vulnerability. It's
Thank
so
you.
nice having conversations with people who are just so open to being actually like real and raw. And from the very beginning of my business journey, that was always my intention. And I feel like
Mhm.
you've just, it's like fucking lift off.
Oh my God, I love it. No, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, if you're coming over from Jamie's community, like follow me and then send me a DM so I know that that's where you're coming from, and we can start to have a chat.
Yeah.